There are some footballers you do not want to see only in a club jersey, because some talents simply belong on the World Cup stage. The World Cup is not just a tournament where great players compete. Sometimes it is where careers feel complete, where stars become legends, and where major absences are felt even more deeply. But this is exactly where the cruel side of football begins. No matter how big of a star you are, no matter how many great clubs you have played for, the World Cup does not open its doors to everyone. Now, if you're ready, let's look at the legendary players who will not be at the World Cup. The first name is a star who has left his mark on European football for years with his intelligence, vision, and leadership: Dusan Tadic. To explain Tadic, goals and assists alone are not enough. His influence usually goes far beyond the numbers. He controls the tempo of the game, makes the right pass at the right moment, helps his teammates feel comfortable, and changes matches with his leadership. During his Ajax years, he became one of the most creative attacking minds in European football. He showed that same quality many times during his time at Fenerbahce as well. Even as he got older, he proved that football intelligence does not fade. When the ball comes to his feet, he does not panic. He slows the game down when needed, and with one pass, he can break the entire balance of a defense. That is why the 2026 World Cup could have been so special for him, because this tournament could have been one of the last major international stages of his career. On paper, Serbia had a strong squad. Tadic's vision, Mitrovic's experience, Vlahovic's finishing. When you look at those names, you would expect this team to be at the World Cup. But Serbia fell short of expectations in the qualifying group. They finished behind England and Albania, and they couldn't even reach the playoffs. This was not only a team failure, it was also a result that showed how cruel time can be for a player like Tadic. Because some chances never come back. Tadic can still bring intelligence to the pitch, he can still change the direction of matches, he can still lead his team. But the World Cup is different. It is a gate that appears only a few times in a player's career. And for Tadic, that gate has most likely closed. The second name is someone whose story may truly surprise you: Gianluigi Donnarumma. Donnarumma is not just a great goalkeeper, he was one of the biggest heroes of Italy's European Championship story. At Euro 2020, he made history with his penalty saves. He became one of the key figures who carried Italy to glory at Wembley. Back then, it looked like he would be the face of Italy's goal in major tournaments for many years. But when it comes to the World Cup, Italy's nightmare has not ended. They were not there in 2018, they were not there in 2022, and now they will not be there in 2026 either. We are talking about a country that has won the World Cup 4 times, a country with one of the greatest traditions in football history. Italy, known for its defensive culture, its goalkeeping legacy, and its tournament mentality, has now missed 3 World Cups in a row. For Donnarumma, this situation feels even heavier, because a goalkeeper's most mature years often begin around this stage of his career. Donnarumma is still an elite level, he is still a goalkeeper for big matches, he is still one of the most talked about names in world football. But he cannot write his own story on the World Cup stage. And since we are talking about Italy, the next name is another face of the same disappointment: Nicolo Barella. Barella is one of the clearest examples of a modern midfielder. He makes a difference with his energy, pressing power, fighting spirit, and consistency throughout the match. For years, he has played critical games at the highest level of European football with Inter. But in this tournament, talent alone is not enough. You need tempo, you need endurance, you need the right decisions under pressure. In matches where every single ball becomes more valuable, players like Barella keep teams alive. That is why Italy's absence is not only Donnarumma's story. It also means that players like Barella, who are in their prime years, will be away from the biggest stage. A midfielder who plays major matches at club level and sets the rhythm on the hardest nights in Europe has lost the chance to write the same story at the World Cup. You cannot but wonder, if Barella had played at the World Cup with this generation, what level would he have added to Italy's midfield? Could he have changed the fate of a tight match with his energy? We will not get to see that. Sometimes the players missing from the World Cup are felt even more once the tournament begins. Not at the first whistle, but when a match gets stuck, when a team needs energy in midfield, when leadership is missing. Barella will be one of the invisible absences of 2026. The third name is one of the strongest symbols of Serbia's missed potential: Dusan Vlahovic. What makes Vlahovic special is very clear. His physical strength, his instincts inside the box, and his ability to carry the responsibility of being a striker at a major club. For Serbia, the idea of Tadic's passing intelligence and Vlahovic's finishing could have been a very powerful combination. On one side, experience building the game, on the other, a striker ready to make the final touch inside the box. But their situations are not the same. Because of his age, Tadic may have missed his final chance. For Vlahovic, the situation is different. He's in one of the stronger periods of his career. If he had gone to the World Cup, he could have shown himself to a much wider audience beyond club football. Great strikers can be remembered forever for just one goal at the World Cup. A header, a last-minute goal, a decisive finish in a knockout match. Sometimes it takes only a few seconds for a striker to become a legend. Unfortunately, Vlahovic will not get to live those few seconds. The fourth name is one of the saddest parts of this list. Alexis Sanchez. Alexis is not just a footballer. He's one of the symbols of Chile's golden generation. Barcelona, Arsenal, Inter, major leagues, big matches, huge expectations. But his real legacy is hidden in the unforgettable era he lived with the Chilean national team. The Copa America victories in 2015 and 2016 were among the most special moments in Chilean football history. At that time, Chile was not just a strong team. They had a football identity that was aggressive, brave, intense, and not afraid of big opponents. Alexis Sanchez was one of the most important faces of that identity. But as time passes, football shows mercy to no one. Chile, once one of the most feared teams in South America, now looks far away from its old power. For Alexis, stepping onto the World Cup stage one more time could have been a nostalgic but meaningful farewell in the final part of his career. But in 2026, we will not see Alexis on that stage. This is not only the absence of one player, it means that a whole generation will not get to play its final act at the World Cup. The next name carries a completely different story: Andre Onana. Cameroon has a special place in World Cup history. From Roger Milla to Samuel Eto'o, they have a great legacy, a strong football culture, and a colorful tournament identity. But in 2026, Cameroon will not be on this stage. This is also a major loss for Andre Onana, because Onana's career has always had ups and downs. On one side, there is his rise at Ajax, his run to the Champions League final with Inter, and the passing quality he added to modern goalkeeping. On the other hand, there are mistakes in big matches, controversies, and periods spent under constant pressure. That is exactly why the World Cup could have been a stage of rebirth for him. If Onana had delivered a strong performance in Cameroon's goal, he could have changed many of the things people say about him. Instead of his mistakes, people could have talked about his reflexes. Instead of controversies, his leadership could have stood out. But Cameroon's journey ended in the playoff stage. The disappointment against DR Congo did not only end a country's World Cup dream, it also took away Onana's chance to prove himself again on the biggest stage in world football. And the final name is one of the youngest, most exciting, and perhaps one of the most painful absences from the tournament: Khvicha Kvaratskhelia. Kvara is one of those wingers who makes modern football enjoyable to watch. When the ball comes to his feet, he is the kind of star who can lift the crowd from their seats. Because you cannot predict what he will do. He can suddenly accelerate. He can suddenly cut inside. He can create a passing angle or take a shot when nobody expects it. His rise at Napoli made him one of the most special stars in European football. His journey to the level of Paris Saint-Germain also showed that he is no longer just a talent. He is a player for big matches. But individual talent alone is not enough to reach the World Cup. And this is the painful part of Kvara's story begins. He is absolutely a World Cup level player. In fact, if he had been at the tournament, he would have been one of the names that neutral football fans would especially want to watch. Because the World Cup becomes more exciting with players like this. Stars who can push an entire defense back on their own and turn an ordinary situation into an unforgettable moment. But for Georgia, reaching this stage is still very difficult. They competed in a group with strong opponents like Spain and Turkey in the European qualifiers. No matter how special Kvara is, it is almost impossible to carry a country to the World Cup alone. Some players belong to the tournament because of their talent, But because their countries cannot reach that level, the world cannot watch them on the biggest stage. Kvaratskhelia absence in 2026 is therefore a loss not only for Georgia, but also a loss for the quality of football in the tournament, because he is a player who gives the viewer a sense of curiosity. When the ball comes to him, you do not know what he will do. And one of the things that makes football beautiful is exactly that: unpredictability and curiosity. Of course, there will be many great stars at the 2026 World Cup. Football's biggest stage will once again be full of bright names. But unfortunately, some players will not be able to take part in this tournament.